Pagan with a capital P or pagan with a small p? Which one do I like to use? Paganism is something that people associate a lot with me in these times. Most people tend to believe that the Romani Gypsy culture is an offshoot of what the pagan religion is. And it's the other way about. The modern pagan or neo-pagan religion, which is where you would often use a capital P to say, I am of the pagan religion, is an offshoot of many other cultures, generally. Now, not strictly speaking, but generally. Now, when I use the word pagan with a small p, I am actually advertising that it is pre-Christian. So when I say I am pagan, I'm saying I am pagan. I am not a pagan. I know it sounds strange, perhaps to some of you, but there is a difference. The pagan religion is not what I identify with. Where my own culture identifies with a modern pagan religion is where we both have an interest and a love for and a following of the natural world processes that happen every season. Right, that's where we come close together. There is a difference because the pre-Christian pagan would not have followed farming methods, okay, because that hadn't been invented, and it wasn't part of my culture, my community. Probably the Romani Gypsies are one of the few cultures that didn't get into farming. We refused, point blank. We were a nomadic people, and that means that we travelled from place to place and didn't settle in one particular place where we grew a crop and harvested it, blah, blah, blah. So when pagan people write to me and talk about harvesting, harvest festivals, that isn't what we would have celebrated. The harvest time is usually in the West, anyway, in Britain, late summer, early autumn. And for us, it was a matter of moving from Cam, the sun's period, summer, to Sean's period, which is the autumn. The autumn period was a run-up to winter. You didn't actually have an autumn period as we know it today, because that was largely created by farming, by the agricultural people. And we didn't do that. We worked with everyone, obviously, as the centuries went by. Farming was part of life, so we worked with everyone, but we didn't do it ourselves. So going back to paganism, it's strange, all these isms, we didn't celebrate those agricultural parts of the year in the same way as the neo-pagans would, giving offerings for the crop, etc. So when we fast forward to modern day, I can't tell you the amount of emails, communications I receive that expect me to be a modern neo-pagan. Now, I'm not a modern neo-pagan as much as I'm not a modern neo-shaman. I do not practice core shamanism, and I do not practice modern paganism. This means I don't create or worship at a neo-pagan altar. Altars as we know them today in pagan communities came into existence here in the West during the neo-pagan revival sometime in the mid-20th century. People sometimes write to me and ask me what I put on my own altar. Well, the answer is I don't have one. Just think about it. If you're a nomadic people and you're a lot of the time trying to sort of stay out of the way just because there are people who don't warm to you, and we all know that's true where Romani people are concerned, you're hardly likely to create some sort of altar with lots of different bits and pieces on and then have to carry it around with you. Goodness knows there's enough to carry around with you as it is, but we don't carry altars. Well, I don't carry an altar around with me. I don't have an altar in my house. We don't have neo-pagan altars in the ancient way of practicing rituals and everything else in the Romani culture. I think this old early picture here of Romani people gives a good indication of the sort of way they are when they travel about. You can't imagine them putting all sorts of things on their donkeys to carry along with them. If I want to honour something within the natural world, I'm inclined to go to the place where it exists, where it's rooted in the ground. Rocks, trees, water. Well, you can't sort of move the ocean. But, if you think that all these things come from the earth, they're all rooted in the earth, and we want to worship them because they're in the earth, why would we think of removing them from the earth and bringing them to us for ourselves? And that's primarily how I see the worship of things like on altars in churches and in specific places. We bring those things to us. That doesn't sit well with me, and it doesn't seem quite right. We are taking the natural world into our own hands in this respect and doing with her as we wish, which we've been doing for the last, I was going to say the last few centuries, but it's the last few thousand years. We seem to think that we are not just the guardians of the natural world, but we're manipulators of the natural world, and that's what it boils down to. So it's a matter of retaining that, I suppose, primitive essence of what we are and what everything else is. And I suppose the small p could also stand for primitive. So when I'm saying donkeys, trees, people, all these beings that have never lost their primitiveness, then that is the small p, that is the pagan with a small p. It means I am of the earth, I am respectful of the earth, I never move away from the earth, I am derived from the earth. The earth is what comes first. The natural world is what comes first. So it doesn't matter about all the ways we want to worship. It's essential that we get this in perspective, I think. That's my own ancient, primitive, pagan with a small p way of thinking. We all used to enjoy our relationship with the natural world, and through that we retained the qualities of the natural world, the qualities of the seasons within us. Not agriculture, not farming, but the qualities of springtime, of summertime, of autumn and winter. All those seasons have rich, rich qualities which we have ourselves. And remember, we are derivatives of the earth. We are derivatives of the seasons. We are derivatives of everything that the natural world does. And the natural world is also pagan with a small p. Our own ancient tribalism is very different. Our own ancient culture comes from way, way back, where the big P was unknown. It was all about the small p. Learn realistically. Learn about the real you with a small p, and you won't go wrong.